Okay, welcome to the program, folks. October the 23rd, you're with the Editor-in-Chief live with Lester's Oil. This is, of course, your multi-ingredient omega-3 healthy aging supplement backed by thousands of satisfied customers. 6 supplements in 1 capsule, supports joint, heart and brain health. Take as directed, read the label. It is About Health Auckland. Good evening.
Duncan Garner, live.
Yeah, nice to have you along, everybody. I'm Duncan Garner. Welcome. Good to have your company. Get involved. Okay, leave us a message on YouTube, TikTok. Also, tonight, given that we're going to be debating the monarchy versus republicanism, 0800 863 293. Get off the couch and ring us. Have a go. Have a shot. Tonight, a live poll as well. The monarchy or go it alone and become a republic. What are your thoughts on this? 0800 863 293. It'll be entirely unscientific, this poll, with a huge margin of error, of course, but it'll still be credible. King Charles and Queen Camila have left Australia after their whirlwind trip. Was it staged to look like Australia's still in love with the monarchy? Or was it forced? And is it a sign that Australia wants out as it heads towards becoming a republic? Truth is, we won't become a republic until they do, is that right? At least they got a stopover, I suppose. Charlie's first trip down under for 7 years, his first as king, and he's forgotten the directions to New Zealand. He ignored us. Over the horizon, the southern colony, that's us. We're just waiting. Next time, if there is one, I suppose. Even Samoa gets a visit as the Commonwealth Heads of Government Conference gets underway. Relevant or ridiculous is my question. All good or archaic? Having a head of state 20,000 kilometres away and in no way in tune with our way of life. You can make that argument. You might make another argument. 0800 863 293 is the number. Let's go.
Duncan Garner, live.
So we're going to speak to Peter Hamilton. He, of course, is a former diplomat, and he says, yes, we need to go republic. But Dr. Sean Palmer, of course, is with Monarchy New Zealand. He says, no. There's nothing wrong with the arrangements we have right now. And Sean joins us. Sean, g'day. Nice to have you on the program.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for turning around your domestic and family life to be here. I know it was sort of last minute, so thank you so much. Now, King Charles didn't come to New Zealand. Is it a snub?
I think it would be tough to have anybody seriously consider that a snub. I mean, he's a 75-year-old cancer patient, and he has an incredibly demanding schedule, regardless of those issues. I think everybody would have liked to have had him here in New Zealand. The fact is, we're all talking about how we would have liked to have had him here, but he wasn't able to make it happen.
Why us though? You know, you're coming all this way. It's a long ways. You know, you come down to Australia. You're not that far away as the bird flies, and then you go to Samoa as well. It's kind of he's in the neighbourhood. You know. He's in the neighbourhood.
He is in the neighbourhood. It's true. And I really would have liked to have seen him here, as I know most New Zealanders would have. I think when his doctors say, here's how much time you can take off the cancer treatment, that is a pretty significant factor. And I'm sure if his doctors had said you can stay off longer, he probably would have been here.
Yeah, you think it's purely down to medical advice, although maybe they say, well, if you've got cancer, don't go at all.
Well, I think they may have suggested something like that, and he said, no, this is, the first head of the Commonwealth government meeting, and he wasn't going to miss it.
No.
He was going to risk that, and it's all weighing up those risks.
How do you think he was received in Australia? We've seen a lot of the footage and vision that's come out of Australia now. He was pretty warmly received.
Well, it certainly looked like it from what I saw. Huge crowds, huge interest, great turnout. A few little stunts here and there, but that's the sort of thing you tend to expect. In general, the media spend a lot of time saying, oh, that nobody will turn up, nobody's interested, no one will come along. And yet there everybody is.
Yeah, they're sort of fascinated. People are still fascinated, aren't they? Especially, older people are fascinated to have a bit of a look. How has he gone as the king? Why is it still relevant to New Zealanders to have a head of state 20,000 kilometres away? When New Zealanders, if you would ask you the head of state is, they'd probably say the Prime Minister.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's necessarily a great credit to the education system on our Constitution. But in terms of why it's still relevant, the monarchy is the foundation of our Constitution. It's the earliest part. It's a central part that touches on many, many others. And we have an incredibly successful system of government here. It's really not so much where the head of state is located, so much as how good a system is it? And it is
Yeah, it is a hard one to argue against in terms of the way it works. Although in saying that, you could still be part of the Commonwealth. You could leave the monarchy, you could leave them behind, but still be in the club, couldn't you? I mean, you've seen this with other countries now. Yeah.
If you consider being in the Commonwealth the essential feature of what your country stands for, then sure, you could be in it. But there are plenty of countries in the Commonwealth that do not have the robust democracy that we have, the strong support for civil rights, law, a whole raft of issues. So I think when it comes down to it, us being a monarchy is far more important than whether in the Commonwealth or not.
Yeah, but I mean, you could still have all the basis of what we stand for in terms of our laws and in terms of our governance, all our structures. You could still have that as a republic, and you could be proudly independent, stand on your own 2 feet, and not say, oh, our head of state's 20,000 k's away and comes here once every 10 years if you're lucky.
Yeah. And you know what? If you trust me, we'll open up the bonnet of your car and I'll tell you, I can take out a couple of pieces. It won't affect anything. I assure you it won't affect anything. It's a promise that people who are opposed to the monarchy are very happy to make. It's very easy. It's a sort of slick salesman job. Nothing will change except this foundational component of the Constitution.
What's the worst case then? So
I don't buy that.
Okay, so what do you think then? What do you think would happen if we were to walk away? What's the most chaotic position that could happen? What does chaos look like?
Well, I mean, there's no shortage of countries around the world who have experimented with different systems of government, and they all work brilliantly right up until the moment that they don't. You know, they hit a speed bump, and sometimes they work out okay, and sometimes they don't. And it's not the sort of thing that I would want to experiment with. I mean, the fact is, New Zealand gets a 97 out of 100 in its score for democracy, civil liberties, or organizations around the world rank New Zealand in the very top. And so the question is not what could go wrong. The question is, how much better do you think you could do than 97? And I mean, the only ones that come in higher than us are other monarchies anyway.
Yes.
Like Norway and Sweden.
Well, is it broken? I mean, the question that I used to be more Republican than monarch, but certainly with the Queen, and as I got older and as I saw her get older, I sort of tended to go more monarchy, to be honest. I thought it was a safe system. It was a system that we knew. It had safeguards in it. Māori seemed to be, they knew who their direct line of contact was with, and there was the treaty. I thought, do we need this fight? Do we really need it? We've got a slow economy. Let's get the economy going before we even get this sort of thing debated. It's always the case.
Well, exactly. There are so many far more important things to work on a daily basis than to tinker for no particular reason in a very complex system. I mean, as you say, the monarchy is very significant to a large portion of the Maori population because it was right there at the foundation with the treaty. And quite frankly, when people say, well, we'll just take the crown out of the treaty and we'll sub in something else, we'll say the government of New Zealand or something, I think you'd have to ask the other party whether they're happy to have you just sub something else in, make some changes,
we've seen
that sort of thing.
And we've seen how that's going down at the moment with this debate around the treaty principles. I mean, we can't even seem to debate a few treaty principles without the threat of a massive hikoi to Parliament and, without Māori claiming that they're losing everything. So it would be a huge debate for them. It would be a massive debate for them because they are intrinsically linked through the treaty to the British monarchy. They are.
Oh, there's no question that it would certainly be a divisive issue, a very complicated issue. And quite frankly, if you're going to open up treaty negotiations, why would it just be limited to that one thing? You think other people wouldn't have other ideas to make some changes, to bring in some other components there? So I think it's kind of republicanism is a sort of out of touch 1950s, 1960s ideal. It's the anti-establishment generation that said, let's get rid of everything. Let's knock everything down. And quite frankly, we see tremendous support for it building among younger New Zealanders who say, wait, before we throw it all away, let's make sure we understand what we're looking at.
Do
And that's why both here and in Australia, republicanism is down to incredibly low levels. I mean, there's a Research NZ poll that just came out a couple of weeks ago that says that support for becoming a republic in New Zealand is at 23%. That is down more than it has been in 15 years.
Yeah,
Australia, it's at the lowest level since the 90s.
Yeah, I think Australia's gone backwards, and I think we might have too. I think the Queen's long life. The Queen's long life and the love and admiration and respect people had for her, whether you support the monarchy or not, but the admiration people had for her and her service, I think they were in a really strong position. You know, even when she died, there was a hugely strong position for the monarchy because of her. I mean, I think she gets the credit for this.
Well, I think she does deserve a lot of credit for, you know, what she did, how she managed that her role as monarch for those 7 decades. But by the same token, it's not as though King Charles was sitting around doing nothing when before he was king. You know, he has materially impacted hundreds of thousands of lives through things like the Prince's Charities, the vast quantities of money that he raised for charities around the world, you know, and of course his environmentalism. He was decades ahead of people on environmentalism and conservation issues. So yes, we look back on the Queen and say what an incredible job she did, because quite frankly, nobody would say that she did a poor job.
No.
And where we are now with the King, let's face it, he's not going to be king for 70 years. We know that. That's just the deal that he's got. But I think most people would say he's done a great job as king so far.
Yeah, I was sceptical, but I think he's slipped into the role. Well, he's been readying himself for it for 70 years, so he's been positioning himself. So he knows the etiquette. He's the perfect person potentially for the bridge. To take that bridge to Prince William, I suppose. But in many ways, I think he's been a little bit. You know, he's been suffering cancer, of course, and that's awful. But the way that you saw the rugby girls, the rugby women from New Zealand, the way they hugged him in Buckingham Palace, I thought that said a lot to me, because he was actually reasonably normal. He just said, "A hug, yes, of course," you know, and then they went, and I thought that image to me is one of the images of the year. It may well be the image of the year for me, because it's just so. It tells a story about our connection with him and his connection with us, maybe.
Oh, absolutely. No, I think you're absolutely right. And so when people say, do you wish he was here? Yes, for exactly that reason, because New Zealanders have a great degree of affection for him and for the monarchy. And it's very clear that he has the same affection for New Zealand. You know, I mean, his grandson, Prince George, made his first public appearance ever in New Zealand.
Yes.
You know, his son, one of William's first public appearances ever was here in New Zealand. So I know, you know, he is probably quite broken up to not be able to be here. And I mean, the key is that we ensure that the Prime Minister's office gets them back down here as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And if it's not possible for the King and Queen, then it needs to be William and Catherine.
I found myself disappointed that he didn't come. You see, that's probably why I threw myself at this at doing the issue, because I thought, oh, bugger it. I mean, you're the new king. I think you should be here. I'd like to see you. I was personally a bit disappointed, which is the first time in my life that I've been disappointed that a royal didn't make it to New Zealand. So what does that tell? Am I getting older?
It just shows the wisdom that's coming with your age there.
Yeah. What would we, if the Australians went to become a republic, would we then look more seriously at it? Do you think? Would New Zealanders look across the fence and go, oh, okay?
Well, I mean, there's certainly two possibilities. One is that we would look to copy the Australians and follow whatever poor decisions they may make. Or, as is, I think, possibly more likely, New Zealanders would say, we're not going to be dictated to by anyone. We're not going to copy anyone just for the heck of it. We're not going to ape the Australians. We're going to look at it and do what we want to do. It's a relationship that would be very similar to Canada and the US. You know, Canada is not going to give the monarchy up anytime soon, because it is a major distinguishing feature between Canada and the US.
We're a young country. We're still a young country, and I think we've probably got a long way to go yet. We'll hold on to the monarchy. You convinced me. I appreciate your time on the program tonight. Thank you so much. I know you've got kids to put to bed and all sorts of things, so I'll leave you to it, but thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Okay, cheers, Sean. Ta, mate.
Duncan Garner, live.
Yeah, so let us know your thoughts. 0800 863 293. It's pretty compelling, isn't it? I mean, if something, I don't know. What do you young fellas think? Isaac, I mean, you guys are, you're 20. God, you're 20 still. You haven't turned 21 yet. Okay, so.
Oh, no. I am 21.
Oh, you're 21?
It's like 3 weeks ago.
Oh, well, you didn't tell me.
Oh, sorry, man. Yeah.
I would have bought you a flat white or something. Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Milestone. And are you pining for a republic?
Nah, I mean, like, I think that, I mean, I'm not going to claim to be an expert on any of this, but, I don't know, I feel like as a country, I feel like we wouldn't really be able to hold our own that well as a republic.
Yeah, no, I mean, your view matters because you're the next generation, mate.
Yeah, I know, and it's just like, I don't know what the whole deal is, and I'm sure there's a whole bunch of numbers that go onto it, and, like, you think about the economics and how much we must get in support. And not that they're just like sending us money, but you think about trade and you think about everything like that.
That can all exist, but being part of a club,
but it'd be significantly more difficult, right, if you weren't part of the Commonwealth. Trading between those countries,
you'd still trade with them because you got these free trade agreements in place, But it's just being part of a club. People want to turn up to their tea party, so you turn up to see your mates to go to the Auckland football game.
Yep.
Well, we turn up to the Commonwealth Club. It's a strange club.
Yeah.
African dictators, Canadian Prime Minister, New Zealand Prime Minister. It's a bit odd.
But I don't know, like, I think there's something a little bit special about being part of the Commonwealth. Commonwealth Games are always a good thing to be a part of.
Yeah, I wonder how
and we always do really well in the Commonwealth Games.
Well, that's because there's no one goes.
Exactly.
So the B team, we win the B team stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
We did it at the Olympics, actually.
We did pretty good.
See, that's the Republican Games.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Much been said on TikTok.
Hang on. Let me double check this.
Over here on YouTube, I don't think Brexit's working that well for England.
That's a good point.
There's your lesson.
Yeah, that's a good point. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, James says. And Moana, if we go Republic, I guess for me, I want to know what is the implications in terms of Te Tiriti, which is fair enough.
It's true. Māori. I mean, you see what they're doing with David Seymour.
Yep. Absolute can of worms, that one.
And the treaty principles won't even be changed because it won't go past the first stage of the Select Committee, so it won't go anywhere. And they're still that fast,
Yeah.
All right, let's do 3 questions. Thank you, Isaac. Very good. Very good.
3 questions from the editor-in-chief.
Okay, let's know what you think of this. So the euthanasia law is now exactly 4 years old. How many people have used it? Oh, that's a bit grim, isn't it, to talk about? But 864 New Zealanders opted to have assisted deaths in New Zealand over the last 4 years. 20% of people were turned down. I support this law, and it's personal choice. And why shouldn't people have that choice? All the safeguards are in place. Huge safeguards are in place. She's pretty tight, and it seems to be working okay. Staying on the topic, have you seen the death pods being put up in the forest in Europe because of legal issues? So they're not legal. So they've got these things. Apparently, you walk into these death pods. This is if you're about to die. You lie down, you press a button, and it releases some kind of formula. You go to sleep, it's lights out. Death pods. Be very careful about those. At number 3, police continue to kid themselves, I reckon, by saying even late today that Auckland is a very safe city. They said that immediately after someone was stabbed and killed on a bus in broad daylight. Oh, the cops need to read the room. No one thinks that Auckland is a really safe place right now. It's never felt so bloody dodgy, in my view. But imagine the cops saying that as soon as someone's killed on a bus, stabbed, and then they go and say that. I don't get it.
Duncan Garner, live.
Yeah. Now, today I'm doing some work in about a month's time for a group of high rollers, which basically means that they're bigwigs, right? They're bigwigs. And so they asked me to host a panel, and they've asked me to give them a bio today. And I was thinking, oh God, I've got to write about myself, a bio. What do I do here? So I started to write this thing, and as I'm going through this, I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. I don't even want to write about myself. So, and I've become quite sceptical over the years about pumping yourself up and that sort of thing. We don't do anything special. We are basically, sausage factory. In reality, we work in a sausage factory, right? So I got a bit carried away, and I thought, why don't I send a bio taking the piss out of myself and this industry? So I decided to write the bio in a sort of satirical tone. And I'm yet to hear back from them, but let's hope that the silence is golden. That means they're going to put it in front of everybody in a few weeks' time. But here's what I provided. I want you to tell me what you think about this. Here it goes. This is what hopefully will be on the bio when they read it out. Being asked to write a bio on yourself after you've been in the media for 30 years is so much harder these days because everything you've worked for no longer exists. So writing a bio is like writing your own obituary. It's like turning up to your own funeral, but only after you've administered your own euthanasia. This is true. This is how I felt. The list of publications, newspapers, shows, news programs, radio stations, and radio shows looks really impressive on the list. After all these years, it looks really impressive until you realise once I had my go, they all folded. It was shut down, and they're no longer. Although the AM show, I want to blame someone else for this, the AM show's demise rests squarely with Ryan Bridge and Lloyd Burr. And I've informed both those blokes of their blame in this, and they have appeared to agree as well. Yet, Duncan, this is the bio, continues to defy the breathtaking gravity that dominates the New Zealand media industry. Like AJ Hackett, he bounces back up, okay? And he now produces and writes and hosts a daily news and current affairs podcast called Duncan Garner, Editor-in-Chief, live, as opposed to dead. It's a grandiose name. This is in the bio. It's a grandiose name that carries none of the influence within MediaWorks that the title suggests to the outside world. No one else works on it. Well, they did, but they resigned for more money and less stress, so they went to Radio New Zealand, never to be seen and heard from again. It likely suited us too, because what the hell are we doing paying someone, hiring someone? That's a cost. We don't do cost. So that was probably quite timely. So Duncan has to do everything, including watering the fake plants in the studio that, I kid you not, were repossessed because someone hadn't paid the bill. It was a relief because the more they were watered, the less they grew. So then I just pinched one from my mum's toilet, which is just over here. This is the one we have now. It's just from mum's toilet. So that's not, we don't owe any money on that or nothing. The only help Duncan gets is from a couple of blokes who bravely, well, the first one calls himself Big Willie. I mean, what man would call himself Big Willie? Yeah, there's a joker called Isaac who at 21 knows more than Duncan and 3 times as much as Big Willie. Forrester, formerly known as Forrester, is almost now an advisor to the show. That's how far up the ranks he has gone here at MediaWorks. Sadly, there are no ranks. So Forrester might have that feeling that he's gone up in the world, but the only sign of that is a slightly better haircut and his overpriced Mount Eden apartment, when you now need 10 people in it in 3 bedrooms to afford it. Apart from that, Forrester and Isaac still get the bus, and until that's resolved, the chances of them getting a girlfriend remain lower or worse than my chances. Okay? That's the truth, and they know it, and they're smiling. The podcast was devised in the days and weeks after the collapse of Today FM, and the idea first entered Duncan's mind as Tova dropped the F-bomb, and he claimed that the pricks were deceitful, you know. Since then, Duncan has largely hid in the corridors when the boss appears so as to give off the impression that he no longer works at MediaWorks. He's no longer there. Yes, he's become a contractor. The drop in pay for Duncan was so brutal that if you were on the DPB under Labour with 4 kids, then suddenly you matched his pay. Sadly, we think Duncan has more than 4 kids, and he's become his own one-man working for families scheme. Full stop. Okay. The podcast, live at 7 p.m, runs across social media, platforms that Duncan has despised for years. But when the world gets its news from TikTok, you either join up or you ring Mike King and get a week's worth of mental health sessions to help you cope with that. Before the podcast, there was Here Today FM, Gone Tomorrow. He was the host of the AM show on TV3, where he braved 5 years of 2:30 AM alarms before common sense took over. Before that, he's hosted 3's 7 p.m. Story, which went tits up. And he hosted Radio Live's Drive Show. He spent 17 years in Parliament and left before him and Trevor Mallard had a real fight, a real scrap. Trevor's got form, he knows how to punch. During the glory days of late nights and no social media, recording our every move, Duncan served 7 years as TV3's political editor, and you can read about that in Paddy Gower's book. If Duncan wrote a book, he may well have to be deported before it was released, effectively. He's won numerous journalism awards, including TV Journalist of the Year, Best Talk Presenter at the New Zealand Radio Awards, up against Paul Henry and Mike Hosking. I thank them for the brutal competition, but neither man was there on the night. They'd both taken memory loss pills, so they could wake up in the morning having forgotten that I kicked their ass last night. And he won the 2017 Opinion Writer of the Year prize at the Canon Media Awards, but he locked himself in the loo and almost didn't make the podium, so that was a silly boy. That's starting to sound serious, but Duncan reliably informs us that there are so many awards that everybody wins one. And saying that, he's not won anything for a few years, which undermines his previous statement that everybody wins one. But he's Pākehā, and we've already won so many rights that we couldn't possibly be recognised any further amongst our peers anymore. It's just not right. It doesn't seem to sort of celebrate diversity if we give him an award. His 2024 highlight was making the top 6 on Celebrity Treasure Island before he pulled on the wrong snake. Be careful pulling on the wrong snake, he says. Teaming up with Christian Cullen to nail former warrior Waitangi Kopu in beach scrummaging was satisfying, if only to prove to the bastards that there's life in the old prick yet. But 48 minutes in one scrum was long. Let's hope the IRB doesn't adopt 48-minute scrums in the years ahead. But the one moment I will treasure is what happened to me yesterday at St Luke's. Getting fleeced by my son and his mates. I was at Tank, buying those expensive milkshakes where they are. And this woman and her 2 kids, aged 7 and 3, came up to me. And I said to my boys, I bet she watched Treasure Island. She turned to her 7-year-old, the shy little girl, and said to me, sorry, I didn't watch you. I actually didn't recognise you. But my 7-year-old just said, Mummy, there's that loser from Celebrity Treasure Island. I said hello to the little girl, and I pulled out my phone and said, did you want a selfie? She put on the serious face and said, no, thank you, I don't.
Duncan Garner, live.
That was my highlight. That's my bio.
Duncan Garner,
Yeah,
live.
only live once, that'll do. Anyway, Isaac, I gave you a mention in there. You're on the bus. No
Thank
chance
you.
of a girlfriend.
I
But
appreciate
you got to mention.
Yes. No, I'm very grateful to be in your
It
blurb.
was so uncomfortable yesterday at St Luke's. This little girl with her mum. I thought the mum's seen you on Treasure Island.
Yeah.
No. It was her daughter, and then the daughter goes, "Oh, you want a photo?" No.
Nah.
I mean,
No,
how
no.
bad? And my boys were laughing at me.
Oh, fair enough. I would laugh at you too in that situation, Duncan, if I'm being honest.
I think you might have just done that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you can write your own bio. It's sort of weird, really. That is us, folks. Thank you so much for joining us. And Peter is here. Thank you for the feedback. Thank you for your service. Peter Hamilton is a long-time public servant for Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and he's been a Republican, for as long as he can remember. He's pushing for a republic. He said it's time that New Zealand went republic. Ridiculous to have a head of state 20,000 kilometres away, and no one in New Zealand knows who the head of state is anyway. Certainly not. They think it's the Prime Minister. Peter joins us now. Peter, better late than never, mate. I forgot about you last night, and you've joined us now finally. Good to see you, mate. How's things?
Thanks very much, Duncan. Great, thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, good on you. Hey, yeah, so we just had the argument for the monarchy, and he made a very fair and decent argument. You would say what about staying with the monarchy and not and going republic? What would you say? What's your argument?
Okay, well, look, firstly, I think Sean's discussion with it basically confused issues horribly, and this is part of the problem when you discuss the idea of becoming a republic. People are a bit confused about actually what's involved in the role of a head of state, the role of the Governor-General, and the difference between that and the Prime Minister. So we do have a bit of our work cut out to explain the difference. Now, the head of state is the persona of the country, a very important role, non-executive. It's a ceremonial role. And in our case, King Charles is supposed to represent New Zealand's persona wherever he goes overseas. Now, of course, he's incapable of actually doing that for us because, of course, he's never here. The British monarch hasn't been in New Zealand as head of state since 2002. So we actually miss out on the relevance of having a head of state in New Zealand who should actually be living among us, doing all the job that the head of state does. Now, of course, we've got in the form of the Governor-General somebody who does actually do the work of a head of state. And we've had great governors-general all the way through, from Paul Reeves all the way through to now Cindy Kiro. But they do all the work, but actually don't get the recognition either domestically or internationally because they're not actually the head of state. They're what I call the B team of the constitutional importance. That's why I think we need to bring the role back to New Zealand. And I just don't buy the argument that having the British monarch as our head of state in the UK somehow prevents us from becoming a banana republic.
Yeah.
I think I've got much more faith in New Zealanders than that.
What about the fact that Charles hasn't made it this time? So he may not have many more times. What does it say about the fact that he's in our neighbourhood, he's in our backyard and hasn't come through the front door?
Look, to be fair to Charles, I think he is ill, and we're probably not being told the whole truth about his illness because his trip to Australia was just a bit of R&R on the way to Samoa. He didn't really make a full visit to Australia, and he went to Sydney and Canberra, and there were a few thousand people turned out for that, and they gave Camilla bunches of flowers and that sort of thing. But he wasn't actually doing a state visit to Australia, so I'm not surprised he's not coming to New Zealand. But in fact, he should, as head of state, after his coronation, make a full-scale visit here as our head of state. I doubt that he actually will now, though.
I don't think we'll see him now. I think this was the chance, and this might have been our last chance.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, the question, however, is should we move now to have a discussion on becoming a republic? A lot of people are concerned about what that might actually mean. You've raised the Treaty of Waitangi, which we can cover off, but one important distinction needs to be clarified. One of your colleagues in the studio there said, I want to stay in the Commonwealth. We're not leaving the Commonwealth.
You can stay in the Commonwealth. You can stay there, right?
We stay in the Commonwealth. We go to the Commonwealth Games. Most Commonwealth countries are republics already. Only 10, 12, 13 still have the British monarch as head of state. Now, he can't do the job any longer in the 21st century that a head of state has to do. For example, last week, Niue, you probably know and covered this, had its 50th anniversary of self-governing in free association with New Zealand.
Yeah.
Now, Dame Cindy Kiro went up there representing the monarch. Charles sent a small message saying, sorry, love to be here, can't make it. Now, that is typical of what's happening at the moment. The British monarch in London can't be expected to cover these far-flung places, whereas New Zealand and Australia are able to do these things in their own environment, own backyard.
I wonder if it would make it easier for the royal family, for the monarchy to actually to have us make the decision. So we get out of there here, like we grow up. I wonder if they would like us to cut loose, because then they don't have to worry about getting here. We're so far away. It's a pain in the ass, and they're so far away they don't even recognise us. And let's be honest, we're very different. Well, New Zealanders are New Zealanders. We're different from Australians too. But let's just get on with it, maybe, and grow up.
Exactly. I reckon that's the subtext of him not coming here this time, making no effort, not even a 24-hour stopover in Auckland.
Come on, Peter, he's crook. Come on, Peter, don't be unfair.
Yeah, well, the thing is, New Zealanders don't make any real contribution to the monarchy. I mean, what Sean's talking about, we're actually freeloaders when it comes to paying the real cost of the monarchy in the UK. Now, you can't tell me that being king of the United Kingdom is less than a full-time job, so that he's got, months of the year that he can spend outside the UK travelling around what used to be the former colonial past of the empire.
Yeah.
We don't make any contribution. Buckingham Palace is getting a £600 million remake at the moment, right, for the king. So how much are we contributing to that? He's our head of state. Zilch. We don't make any contribution to it at all.
That's because it doesn't affect us, doesn't impact us. We need a second harbour crossing in Auckland. That's what we need.
Exactly.
That 600 million. So, that's the cancer drugs that we've belatedly got. Come on.
Exactly. So we've got the Governor General there doing the work and not getting the recognition for it. The other thing too is, of course, not having the head of state here in New Zealand lets the Prime Minister and the government of the day off the hook in terms of the priority they give to the Governor General. Now, in the UK, the Prime Minister of the UK goes to Buckingham Palace or wherever the King is every week and gives a full briefing. Now, in New Zealand, the Prime Minister does not do that for the Prime Minister, doesn't brief the Governor General. The Governor General is essentially given her role of going to the Executive Council, doing investitures, doing ceremonial stuff, but she's basically sidelined by the government in a way that would never be permissible if we had a head of state in New Zealand.
It's entirely different.
So we need to build up the office of head of state.
Yeah, and because you talk about it being a B team, I wonder if it's almost like a C team, because they're powerless, and they stand at the gate when the new Prime Minister says, okay, I think I've got a government, can I come through the gates to show you I've got the numbers? And then when they go to resign, they head out to head towards the tunnel in Mount Vic and do the same thing. They see them twice. They see them twice in 3 years, and every other time they see them is because by accident they're in the same area because we're a small country with not many people. We treat them badly, I reckon. We give them a nice house, but that's it.
But exactly right. Well, they do go to the Executive Council and they do sign acts of Parliament into law, so they have an important role constitutionally. That's right, which the British monarch cannot undertake at all. And I think the cost of the Governor General is about $10 million a year for government houses in Auckland and Wellington, salaries, security, that sort of thing. It's minuscule, actually, for the whole business, but we don't actually make any contribution in the UK. So I think it's time for New Zealanders to have the conversation. I don't buy the argument that has been made that we just aren't mature enough, capable enough to have our own head of state, and that somehow the British monarch in the UK has got some sort of magic wand over everything in New Zealand that makes things right here.
No, they're chaotic.
They can still come here, they can still visit us. Yeah. But, if we did have a problem, in constitutional problem in New Zealand, there's no way the British monarch is actually going to make any positive contribution to the whole thing.
Well, they wouldn't get here in time. They wouldn't know. They go to Australia first for 5 days and get a Samoa. They wouldn't know where we are. So
exactly. And that, now your other mate raised the question of the Treaty of Waitangi, which I think is an important issue, and I think it certainly it can be made a very difficult issue if people want to make it difficult. The fact is, the British monarch has no interest and no responsibility for the treaty, and hasn't had for over 100 years. Now, they might come to Ngaruahia and, say hello to the kingitanga, and that's important. It's a good relationship, and that continues. This doesn't affect the kingitanga's prominence and mana in any way, but the idea that somehow the British monarch has some sort of responsibility for the Treaty of Waitangi is long gone. Yeah. What's happening with the treaty in New Zealand is entirely the responsibility of the government and people of New Zealand. Now, the Treaty Principles Bill is entirely a domestic matter, and I bet you dollars to donuts, Charles has never actually heard about it.
No, he wouldn't have.
So, he's not actually going to be involved in steering this way through. It's up to New Zealanders, to our government, our politicians, and the electorate, the people of New Zealand, to deal with this themselves. And I don't buy the argument that we don't have people capable of being head of state. I just don't buy it.
The problem is we have short-termism. We have 3-year terms, and no one debates anything of big picture because everyone's trying to get re-elected, and so no one's got the balls. No one's got the nuts to do it.
Exactly. Government General, we reckon, should be chosen by a supermajority of parliamentarians.
Who would it be?
Who would
our first president be? I like the way the Irish do it. They had that guy with all the hair. He was good. Who would we have? Who could you have? No former politician.
There are lots of people. You could even have if good enough, you could even have the former captain of the All Blacks representing New Zealand, which is something that hasn't happened up till now. But we've got good Kiwis who can do the job and represent us both domestically and internationally. And I just don't buy the argument that we don't have good people to do it.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I've been. You've told a good story. You've told a strong case. I think we'll get there one day. It's evolution. We just It sort of wanes. Yeah. It comes and goes. If Charles was going to have a long term as king, we probably might have wanted out. But now we've got this guy, William. He'll come in, and people like him. Supposedly, he'll be there for a long time.
But let's be kind to them and give them the responsibility for being monarch of the UK, and not expecting them to do a full-time job down in New Zealand or in Australia. Canada, as Sean told you, has got its own specific problems with Quebec and the United States. It doesn't happen in New Zealand. We're old enough, mature enough to be able to do this ourselves, and it's an anomaly that we haven't already done it now, I think, in my view.
We're just finally, last question. We need a list of people who shouldn't be, who should be ruled out as president. People that should not be. Right. This could be a good drinking game or something. But people who you do not want. Hey?
Look, I think it's important. The way you choose your head of state is vitally important.
Yes.
For example, I don't like the idea of direct elections. We don't need an election for people to vote for a ceremonial role. It's a figurehead role. You need an election for the Prime Minister and the government. So I think you shouldn't expect to have former politicians standing for the role. I think the idea that Muldoon made Keith Holyoake Governor General in 1978 was a big mistake.
Yeah.
Now, people say we don't want a head of state who's going to be a Trump. Now, that's easily avoided if you don't actually have the decision made by direct election. If you let your parliamentarians, and you've got to trust your parliamentarians because you've voted for them, if you have a supermajority, say 75%, they've got to be able to come up with a good person in the way they already have in the past.
And they will. They do take the job seriously. I know we sort of ridicule them and everything, but they do. They do take it seriously, and you've seen that from your role over the years. Peter, I appreciate your time on the program, mate. I appreciate it.
Good. Well, good. Let's continue the discussion. It needs to happen.
Thank you. I agree. Good on you, mate. Thank you so much, Peter Hamilton. Of course, long-time diplomat and a big proponent of the Republican movement. Who would you not have? Mention Tamiti as a.
Ooh.
No. Oh, interesting.
I mean, I think it would be quite easy to come up with a list of people that you shouldn't have.
Yeah.
But in terms of who I would have, it's a real interesting question because, anyone can run for president. Whereas to be Prime Minister, you've got to be you've got to lead your party, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, but the president's a ceremonial thing. But so you'd want, maybe Colin Meads if he was still around. I don't know.
Yeah.
Pretty dour.
Captain of an All Blacks team could be kind of cool.
It's sort of cliched though, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, but it's cool. Imagine Richard McCaw as president of New Zealand. Sick.
There's some good parties at his place. Oh, no, kids have to go to sleep.
Yeah, true.
No, be careful. We went there one night for a party. Government House in Wellington. We were on our best behaviour, press gallery. I've never seen journalists behave so well. I mean, I was a very good boy that night.
No, well done.
Yeah, couldn't wait to leave, get a goodly place. Right, Willie Jackson for president. No. We said no politicians and no Wallies. I wonder if he called himself Big Willie. That is us. Thank you for tuning in to Duncan Garner, Editor-in-Chief, live with Leicester's Oil, the premium New Zealand-made fish oil supplement backed by a very good study. Support joint heart and brain health. About Health have a $500 Pro Health Pack giveaway running in October with all orders going in the draw to win. Now you can use the code Duncan for 10% off and an extra entry, and you'll go into the draw there. Take as directed. Read the label. About Health Auckland. 0800 999 309 is the number. If you ring them, they're standing by right now and to help you. This will be available as a podcast on Rover shortly, and or wherever you get your podcast, basically. Thanks for your feedback and support. You said to me, Duncan, shame, loser from Treasure Island. Oh, sad. I took it in my stride. It's all right. Thank you for your feedback and support. I'm Duncan at rover.nz. Get in touch with us. To my team, Isaac and Forrester, Lockie, thank you guys. We'll do this again. Do it again tomorrow? Yeah, do it again tomorrow. And remember, life is no dress rehearsal. There's no curtain raiser. There's basically no budget for anything. This is the life that we're living in, the country we live in, so get out and enjoy it. Take care, folks. Ta-da.
That was Duncan Garner, Editor-in-Chief Live. Missed something on the live stream? Text Duncan to 3598 to listen back on the podcast. Want to get in touch? Call 0800 863 293.